And first of all, I want to thank Al Amen, the best manager in the world.
He's the fucking champion of the world! Miguel, man!
Adonis Stevenson, piece of shit.
No, I think Rosado, good boy. Rosado is a good boy.
I've become a massive international superstar. It's as simple as that.
I eat your asshole alive, you bitch! Scared of the real man. I'll fuck you till you love me, faggot.
I'm going to physically shoot David Hay. He fucking glassed me. He glassed me. Derek, who down?
Well, hello everybody and welcome to the 399th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host Steve Wellings. Joining me on the call we have Ozzy Smith and Adam Smido Smith going live on YouTube from 8 o'clock every Sunday evening. The Patreon RSS feed updates shortly after the show concludes. You might be listening to us during the week on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. We're still on Spotify as well at the moment. Don't forget to leave a review on the podcast player of your choice. I'll be going through a few of the reviews later that some of our loyal listeners have been leaving throughout the entire month of November. Nothing less than 5 stars is acceptable. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let's have a look, shall we? Who's hanging around in there? The degenerates draining around in the swamp. Jim McDonald Boxing is there. Tosh Bear, Tom Woodrow, Ben Thorns. Educating the casuals. Come on and educate the casuals tonight if you want. Kaiser Cobra, Ian Wigley, Rob Barnett, Nathan Newman. Shout out to you, Nathan. Richard Wetton. James Tapner has thrown in a question. Try and get to that shortly. I'll put it up on the screen, shall I, so I don't forget. Yeah, Katie Taylor. We'll be going to her later. Davey Wilson, 21. Craig, Celtic Spirit. Good to see you in there as well. Trying to give everybody a shout out here. Dan S, Christopher Young, and James Windsor, Stephen Merchant. Let's get on with it straight away then, shall we? We're not going to talk about Katie Taylor straight off the bat. We're going to go over to Las Vegas. Terence Crawford against Kell Brooks. Smido, you were staying up for the fight. Brittlebrook, as I'm going to call him. Did okay early on, got the jab going, the right hand. As soon as Terence Crawford changed stances, he was a completely different fighter. Thomas Hearns-esque, letting those shots go. And Brook, he went out a little bit meekly for me, Smido. What did you think?
Well, you've took my thunder really there. I thought that, same as you, I thought Brook started pretty well, solidly. Crawford was a bit quiet early on. Brook got that jab going, but after, I think in the third round, Crawford switched it up, went southpaw, and the fight changed. Simple as that. The jab that was effective for Brook was no longer effective. It forced him into bringing the right hand in as well as the jab, or if not leading with the right hand. And when a orthodox fighter throws the right hand, they're more open. And then that's when Crawford started filling the gaps that Brook was opening, because Brook was having to be more aggressive due to the switch to southpaw. It was. Pretty, I don't know, how would you describe the first knockdown was? There was both kind of stepping in, wasn't there? And when anyone is knocked down, scores a knockdown with their lead hand, particularly at this kind of weight, you do have to ask questions of what was going on. But yeah, effectively Crawford scored a knockdown with a jab. Some people might call it a hook, but they were both, stepping into that, and it's obviously caught him full force. And down he goes. The stoppage, as you said, Steve, I think you used the word meekly. You could probably say that about the second knockdown, but or the follow up. But the damage was probably already done by then. To be fair, and Crawford, as we've said many times, I say all the time, he's one of only a few killers that are left in boxing at the moment, and he's got a brilliant killer instinct, and he went in for the kill, and he got it. There's nothing wrong with the stoppage from a refereeing point of view, but maybe from a Kell Brook point of view in terms of, putting it out there and really going out on his shield rather than kind of taming away a little bit. What I would say is when on the first knockdown, when Brook, the ropes held him up, we've seen fighters, even, established champions, would have maybe shown a bit of inexperience or less of a killer instinct there and kind of, let the referee deal with the entanglement. But Crawford wasn't having none of that, followed him up. He might have been tangled in the ropes a bit, but he followed him up, I think, through a left hook while Brook was there prone, and wide open to getting hit. So again, that just underlines that killer instinct. On paper, it's going to go down as a decent win for Crawford in terms of got it done a lot sooner than Errol Spence, but this was the first time Brook made the weight in 3 years. So there's question marks there. There were all stories last week about Crawford, becoming increasingly unhappy with the lack of big fights for him, which is not necessarily his fault because he's on the wrong side of the TV divide. Bob was talking a good game afterwards, basically saying Errol Spence don't want to fight him, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the fight that they need to be making is Pacquiao. It's not necessarily an in-house fight, but Manny's done a lot of work with Bob over the years, and they need to get together and do it again. As you highlighted last week, Steve, Pacquiao's last 5 or 6 fights are better than virtually anyone at that weight class, in or around that weight class, the last few years. So that's the fight that should be made. There's still a lot of opinion about Brook, isn't there? Before and after this fight, I've said my piece on it before, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, he was in great shape." Well, Kell Brook has to be in great shape to make 147. He's not in, he's not. They've been telling us he's struggled to make 147 for years, 4 years, possibly 5. So yeah, if Kell Brook is weighing in at 147 pounds, by definition, he's in good shape. He has to be in good shape to make that weight. Some people more expert than me were saying they thought he looked a bit dry on the scales, blah blah blah. But I don't think there's any excuses. He's had a long training camp. I can't comment if it was a good training camp. It was a long one. He's made the weight proficiently on the day. He's gone in there, gave it a go, and folded. I mean, was it the massacre that people like me predicted? Probably not. But at the end of the day, it's a 4th round knockout. I mean, in anyone's book, it's not the best of. It don't look great. So it's been done. I don't think we'll see him again now. But then again, I said we wouldn't see him again after his last fight. I don't think he would have fought again. So yeah, it appears to have cashed in. There was a bit of a swell of support for him, including from me. Really, I wanted him to do well and I wanted him to win on Saturday. Tough ask as it was, and I think that little swell of boxing hardcore support, if you like, I think some of that was down to the fact that Matchroom and Sky weren't involved, which is good to see. The anti-cult, as it were. But yeah, it was pretty much as we expected. It came a little bit earlier than I was expecting. I would have said maybe 7. So yeah, it came a little bit earlier than I was expecting. But yeah, Crawford's got the job done. Pacquiao must be next. Crawford's career. That's what we need to see. He's 33 years old now, Crawford. He needs to start getting these big fights sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think I'd stop short, Ozzy, probably of calling it a cash out, but for £1.5 million, nice work if you can get it. It all did seem a little bit feeble for that type of money. People talking about Dominic Ingle in the build-up, him not being there. There's nothing Ingle could have done. I mean, he got caught in the round and finished off as well. Matthew D'Souza mentioning about the weight there. Ozzy saying he was possibly weight drained and that. How much do you think of a factor the weight was on Kell Brook's performance?
It's one of them. It's okay looking good at 147, but it's all about the damage, what it does to you as well. Like I said, they've always said previously that Brook struggles to make that weight, and it's that final few pounds that takes it out of him. You've got to remember that in that time as well, he's gone back up to, he's had fights at 160, 154, 155, and then he's finally decided to go back down to 147. Not only that, he's fighting arguably the best 4-7. So, as we say, look, David A looked in great shape against Tony Bellew, didn't he? But it meant absolutely fuck all because his body was a wreck underneath. And I do wonder just how much Kell Brook has got left. The shot from it was like a right, like a short, like right hook, like jabby type of shot,
like a check hook almost type.
It was, yeah, and it ruined Brook. It just completely knocked. It wasn't a case of he was just caught off balance. It really, it basically just he lost his senses. I think if it wasn't for the rope, he would have fallen through. He was just completely going. He couldn't stop. He got, that's naturally classed as a knockdown. And then we've seen Crawford before. He's a vicious and spiteful finisher. and he didn't give Brook any sort of, time to recover. I've seen a couple of people moaning about the stoppage. Nothing wrong with that for me, in my opinion. If that, what would we have achieved for that to keep going? Brook's senses were clearly not there, and he would have only taken even more of a beating. And I think, like by taking that weight off as well, you can lose that punch resistance. So it's difficult to say whether we'll see him again. It's, opportunities present him. And look, if he does come back, he's definitely got to fight at 154. I think that is no doubt about it. It has to be at 154 pounds. But even then, it's like Kell Brook. Is he going to want him? Does he want to be fighting, the likes of, like domestically, European level? He kind of did that with that Rabchenko, didn't he? Which was a bit of a farce of a fight in his comeback, and the likes of Mark DeLuca as well. And I think he boxed Zerafa, didn't he? Like these really random opponents. But in reality, do you see him winning a belt at 154? Not at all. Absolutely not at all. I think the world title holds at 150 more. It'd smash him to pieces. Me personally, I wouldn't be. I have no interest in the Ramir Khan fight, that's for sure. I saw that mentioned again. Some people still saying it'd be great to see. No interest in that whatsoever. No interest whatsoever. And the only other thing I can see is, if he gets offered, huge money, to go in the away corner again, not at world level, but, like somebody who's looking to step up to that. I'm going to say a name, and it's probably a bit earlier, but, like a Tim Tszyu going over to America, going over to Australia to fight at 154, give him a truckload of money to go there. And naturally, if Tszyu could get that sort of name on his record, that'd be excellent for him. I think it's a bit early for Tszyu, but do you understand my point? That sort of fighter, looking to get that big name on the record.
It's sad to see Brook reduced to that, given what he could have been.
Yeah, but I tell you what, though, but what has always done with Kell Brook is money talks. And you put the right sort of money in front of him, and he'll go for it. Another one, maybe that Spaniard, Kerman Lejaraya, going over to Spain type of thing. Brook could see him as winnable fights, and if he gets that sort of win, he could be back in the mix type of thing. I don't know if Eddie Hearn will, look to go and back him again. Very difficult to rebuild him. So it could be that, he needs to go in being like, he was an underdog last night, but, being like the B-side in, like a fight against Tszyu, sort of, someone like that, for maybe to keep it going. But that might keep the flame going for him, and he may just walk away. And what we've said this before about Kell Brook, look, he's achieved everything you can in the sport, domestically and world champion wise as well. However, you can't help but think this guy could have achieved a hell of a lot more.
I think so. We did have a conversation about this a few weeks ago. You can find it on the YouTube page. I'll put the link up if indeed I can find it. Hey to Dave Loback's on the call. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Dave. The K word has been mentioned already. Khan. Can we see Kell against Khan at some point, Dave? My question to you would be, who has the better punch resistance at this stage of their career?
Might be about even, really. In some ways, you could argue, I think Khan did better than Brook. Because he kept the rounds, at least he was losing, but he kept the rounds at least competitive after the first. And then, of course, he quit on that low blow. And Brook, I think he had two competent rounds. You could give them to him. Most people were giving him to him. But by the third, all Crawford did, he increased the pressure. He started sitting down in his punches. You could tell it was a matter of time. Shakur Stevenson was sitting ringside, said the same thing. Brook didn't want any of it. As soon as he started feeling that power, and Crawford was smart enough to see this guy's waiting to be taken, and just very efficient about it. Got him out of there as soon as he could, really. And it didn't take long at all. That short right hook was beautiful. Probably the cleanest punch I've ever seen landed on Brook. The other two guys who stopped him, I don't know if they've ever hit him with a shot like that. And I think this sends a message to Spence because it is a diminished version of Kell Brook. We don't. It's hard to really determine how diminished. But the one who fought Spence was also somewhat diminished because he'd already had his eye socket broken by Golovkin. So, I think optically, even if we won't really know how much this victory means as far as Crawford's ledger, like how much value does it bring to him? Like what kind of condition was Brook in? How much did he want it? He did certainly look good. But yeah, optically, I think no matter what, like you're going to have, the pundits, so-called pundits, you're going to have commentators, you're going to have promoters, you're going to have other people saying, look, Crawford dealt with him in 4 rounds pretty easily and efficiently. Spence took 11 and probably dropped more rounds to Brook than Crawford did. I think it's a good way to build the fight if they take that route. Crawford himself, though, actually wasn't saying that. In his post-fight interview, he said, no, they were different fights. That doesn't really tell us much about it. Aaron probably is thinking, damn it, the kid should use this opportunity to put down his rival. But he didn't. He actually showed some class last night, although he's still that spiteful bastard that really wants to get rid of you in there, which is one of his most interesting qualities as a fighter. It was funny. People on Twitter were saying, I think Kell's in a spiteful mood. He's going to do him. Well, Kell looked like he wanted to box his way to a decision. He didn't look like he wanted any part of a scrap, really. And he sort of had that deer in the headlights look, even in the first 2 rounds. Like he knew he was in there with a dangerous man. And he was right. I would be surprised if he goes on at this point. I don't think he should. I don't care about your question was about Khan, and I haven't even mentioned that yet, but I probably because I don't care. And I haven't cared for years. This fight would have been semi-interesting, even when they were in their primes, I guess. I don't have that sort of domestic connection to it as well, so maybe that means more to the Brits. I know, well, obviously it does. So some people are going to say, oh, it'd be such a great domestic dust-up of Stone Bomber. But no, I'm not interested. Haven't been for years. If it happened, I think it would be kind of appropriate now if it happened, since they're both in like the really bad places in their careers. So I mean, it'd be like whatever, let it happen. It's not going to mean much, but it'd be kind of funny.
Hey, Ted, just before I bring Rob Kelly in, you mentioned the Brits going wild for Kell Brook there. So, assuming this is peak version of Crawford, as we think it is, Dave, what would it have been like if that would have been a peak Brook in last night? So, peak Brook, say the Porter night against that version of Crawford. How would that have ended up, Dave?
I think Crawford still would have won. I think it just would have taken longer. He would have been more cautious about dropping the hammer because Brook would have been more still unknown. And Brook probably himself would have been a more hungry guy. He would have been more fresh. He probably wouldn't have folded as quickly as he did. Although, I mean, that he folded too because his senses were totally scrambled by that shot. It's hard to say because he asked his corner immediately what happened. He didn't even know, like maybe the punch resistance was gone because of the beatings he's taken and the weight dropping, but. It was just it wasn't really a lack of heart last night. I don't think, unless it was in preparation, which it's hard to determine. But I don't think it was lack of heart that lost him the fight. I don't think he quit. I think he was fucked.
Smitho, you're desperate to jump in and defend Khan against Brook, coming to a stadium near you soon. What's appealing about this fight for you?
Fuck all. Not interested. It would be the epitome of a British pay-per-view cash grab. I mean, we've had Hay and Bellew twice. That was, the second particularly was a horrendous cash grab. But no one is interested in Khan and Brook now. Come on, it's. I mean, I can't even remember the last time Khan fought. Brook's lost 3 of his last 6. No, it's just not for me. I mean, they've both been away from assuming it would be a Sky job, but they've both been away from that for a long time. Kel quite publicly on the most recent occasion. No, it just was absolutely nothing for me nowadays. That one, no way. The other point was going to be there's still a lot of talk about the Triple G fight for Brook and the circumstances around that. Obviously, that was a pivotal point in Brook's career, both the fight itself and the aftermath. It's pretty much gone downhill since that night, to be honest. But we can all be clever after the event. I just remember the circumstances around that. There was an opportunity for Triple G to be fighting in Britain on that day at that venue. Kell Brook wasn't meant to be in there, really. We know the story. He got the call and he took it. Yeah, hindsight's a great thing, but I still maintain that Brook put up a fantastic effort early doors there until he got his face broken. There's no accidents or excuses there. That is what happened. But I just think that there's a distinction between Kell Brook's mismanagement, which I've blasted on about many a time. I think he has been mismanaged, and that might be an example of it, but not for me. I thought that was he took the opportunity. We was told he was a 154 fighter anyway, so going up another 6 pounds, wasn't massive in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, there's still split opinion about that. I think the bigger mistake, rather than taking the Golovkin fight, which was incredibly dangerous anyway, the bigger mistake was probably coming directly back down straight after to fight Spence. That was probably the bigger mistake. But hindsight's a lovely thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was doing a piece this week actually on Roy Jones, the time he moved up to fight John Ruiz, and there's a slight parallel there. I suppose Jones moving up to fight Ruiz, coming back too quickly 6 months later to fight Tarver, Brook going up to fight Golovkin, coming shaving himself back down to fight Errol Spence. Just came to me. Could be completely wrong. Let me know in the chat if you think I am. Adam Smitho-Smith has his finger on the pulse as usual, rapping Rob Kelly, because a question came in from Adam Marriott over on patreon.com/boxing asylum, which is along those same lines. Well, I'm going to hit you with this one. He says, with the benefit of hindsight, do you think Brook takes the Triple G fight? Yes, it was a decent payday, but it clearly softened him up. In addition, the extra strain of having to get back down to 147 for Spence and the combined effects these would have had on his durability, given the way he went out against Crawford. Also, shout out to ESPN for referring to Dominic Ingle as a veteran British trainer. Forget about that last bit. What do you think about Brook's decision to move up and down, Rob?
I think they got him confused with Brendan, didn't they? I think I don't give a shit, man, to be honest with you, because it's old news. Like, he made the fucking decision to move up. He got handsomely paid for it. He dared to be great, as we heard about it in the build-up, and then he got his ass beaten. Now, Smitho could be onto something, saying he shouldn't have come back down to 147 straight away, but he wanted to hold on to the IBF strap. I'm not sure from memory who was the IBF champion at 154 at the time, but he surely would have been a shoe-in for a crack at that if he'd wanted it. I think it might have been Jared Herder, one of them guys, though, so it might have been he wanted to hold on to a belt to try and make the Khan fight. That was Khan was saying that at the time, unless he's got a belt, he's not going to make it. So we spoke about this a million times. Kell Brook hung on too long for Amir Khan, chased Amir Khan for too long, and that's his downfall. More so than any of the shit that he did in the ring. He was never going to beat Spence for me. Spence is always a better fighter than him. The Golovkin fight, he had absolutely no fucking chance, but he did a lot better in it than we thought. I thought that was going to be a public execution. He did a lot better than I thought he would. But I expected the fight with Crawford last night to go the exact same way that it did. And, Crawford thankfully did what he had to do, because if he'd have gone into the later half of that fight last night with that version of Kell Brook, there'd be big question marks answered over him. So thankfully for fans of the sport, he did what he was supposed to do, and he took care of Kell Brook the way he was supposed to take care of him. But very rarely in boxing when you're at the elite level, when there's, we talk about these fine margins all the time, does anything happen by accident? I mean, Kell Brook, you cannot, like, for me, all his talk during the week about he was going to make Crawford quit on his stool, and he was going to rip that world championship away from him, that was saying more to me than anything in the preparation, because his words were saying one thing, but his resume over the last 2 years and his activity levels and the way he's lived his life outside the ring and going up and down the weights and everything to come back and fight the best guy in the division, that was all I need to know. He can say whatever he wanted, but I knew a fella that's been operating against B-level guys up at 154 for the best part of the last 2.5 years, and coming off a long stretch of inactivity, was not going to be able to come into the fight and do anything to Terence Crawford, bar have some flashy moments in the fight, which he did. But I mean, really, all he did with the first 2 rounds was make Crawford mad. you know, I thought I saw a brilliant. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. Carry on.
Yeah. Really, I thought all he did in the first 2 rounds was make Crawford mad. I saw a brilliant graphic online where it was like, you know, the fucking airline seats where you sit up. It was like just Crawford adjusted his seat after the second round, sat up and fucking stopped him. Someone was like, Crawford went into this mode. In terms of Crawford as well, there's a lot of fucking backlash towards the guy. I mean, for his resume at 147, and we've indulged in that as well. But he is fucking unbelievable. For me, he's the best guy in the division. And something that we don't speak about enough of when we're talking about Terence Crawford's resume is the other guys are fighting fucking nobody either. I mean, who the fuck is Spence fighting? He fights once a year. Danny Garcia fights once a year. Keith Thurman fights once a year. Pacquiao fights once or twice a year. None of them are fucking fighting each other, though. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they've been having this fucking shootout for the welterweight title over at PBC, even though they hold all the welterweights. So, you know, it's kind of not Crawford's fault. We do want to see the Spence fight next, providing he comes through against Danny Garcia, which he definitely should get. Danny Garcia is past the sell by date, I believe, and never was the goods at 47 anyway. So, that's the fight we want to see.
Where's Spence at though, Rob? That's the question, isn't it?
Well, they both seem to be chasing Pacquiao. Spence has said straight away, if I beat Danny Garcia, I want Pacquiao, and then Bud next. Crawford saying he wants Pacquiao next. Like, what the fuck? They're all chasing Pacquiao for, and he's 40 fucking something years of age. I don't know, but he's still one of the best welterweights in the world. He's probably the one that we don't speak about enough. Like, you know, but yeah, like I said, on the other side, on the PBC, it's not like they're all fighting each other every fucking 6 months or anything. They're not. Like, they all seem to be kind of inactive when you could be having these dream matchups. So hopefully, pandemic, money, all that forces these fights to happen in 2021. Because Crawford is unbelievable, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from him. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yep, Crawford super fighter. I want to see him in against better opposition, hopefully. Stephen Lynch has joined us on the call this evening. Stephen, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing, Steve? Not
too bad at all. Obviously talking naturally about Brook versus Crawford, assuming you've seen it. How did it play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a surprise, the result and the outcome. I guess we could see why Brook was 7 or 8 to 1, and the odds going in. It was still kind of shocking to me, to be honest with you. It was a bad knockout from Brook's point of view, and I take a lot of the analysis that I've heard since it ended basically last night. That this is a washed up version of Kell Brook, and he's sort of long past it and stuff. But I think even taking all that into account, that punch that he took, it didn't land on his chin. I don't think. It kind of landed actually on his cheek, sort of just below one of his dodgy eye sockets. And just the way he reacted to it was just really, really concerning more than anything. And Crawford did what he had to do. He didn't waste any time in getting him out of there. I just will say for Crawford, I mean, he's incredible. Like he's an immense talent, and I think he has been kind of ducked by people because of that. And he's with Top Rank, so it's difficult to match him against some people. But I do think if some respected people do rate him pound for pound number one, then you have to hold people like that to a high standard. And I will say his resume, probably by his own admission, is not where it needs to be for a pound for pound number one. And I was listening to your the last guy who was on. He was talking a lot of sense, but I think if you're talking about pound for pound number one, you have to really really be critical of people's resumes as you compare people. And Canelo, for example, has got a fantastic resume.
Well, one thing I will say in Crawford's favour, and I've been a critic of him in the past, as you all know, is that at least he goes out there and he doesn't play with these guys. They're inferior to him, and he gets rid of them. Brook obviously was on a higher level to some of the other fellas, but he doesn't mess about. He's on a 7 or maybe 8, stoppage streak now. So at least he's got the devil, and he goes and he uses his punching power, he uses aggression, and he gets rid of these guys, and he looks impressive doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was chuckling when the last fella, I didn't catch his name. Sorry, he was talking about Rob. Sorry, yeah. When Rob was saying about how he's seen on Twitter maybe about all Brook did in the first couple of rounds was just make Crawford angry. Crawford, he has that sort of demeanor, doesn't he, when he's doing media and stuff, that he's not like a brash talkative personality like Tyson Fury or some of these people. He just wants to go in there, and as you say, he just wants to get people out of there who he doesn't think are on his level. And I've got a lot of there's a lot of good things to say about that type of approach. Why carry someone for 3 or 4 rounds? If you can get someone out of there, you don't get paid for overtime, as the saying goes. So I definitely do like that about Crawford, but I'd love to see him either fight Pacquiao next, or the win of Spence Garcia, obviously. So I hope we get to see that. I mean, if Spence gets past Garcia, which I expect him to, I mean, that will be a huge fight. Him, Spence, and Crawford. That will be magic stuff. So I hope they can get that on.
Absolutely. Hopefully Spence comes back and looks some way towards the way he was before the car crash, which I'm assuming he will, otherwise they wouldn't have put him in. Hopefully in a fight like this. I'd love to see Spence against Crawford. Just before we move on to Brooks' future, and obviously the inevitable thing that's going to keep cropping up is the Amir Khan fight. Just before that, a couple of stylistic issues for you to address, Stephen, if you wish. First of all, regarding Crawford, came out orthodox early on. As soon as he switched to southpaw, which we thought would make him more vulnerable to the overhand right, it seemed to take away Brooks' jab and benefit him. Also, regarding Brook, I think that sometimes he looks a bit lethargic. Maybe I'm calling for something that was never quite there, but I remember when he fought Michael Zarafa, John Fuchs, I think it was that fight, he was in the corner saying, "Come on, Kel, get on the balls of your feet, jump up and down a bit, add a bit of motion to your work." He seemed to me, he was ducking, he was slipping, but there wasn't that vibrancy about Brook. He seemed a little bit static for all of his athletic qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Steve. It's very well put. Brook, he looked the business, in terms of the physique, and he typically does come into shape for any fight that I can remember, to be honest. But as has been said by other people, Brook always has this kind of upright style, and I think Andre Ward, or maybe Tim Bradley, was saying this on the telecast last night, that one of Brook's weaknesses is that he's not able to adapt, and so when he fights people like Spence and Crawford, they can make an adjustment, as the fight progresses. And Brook is still sort of doing his thing of, ideally I want to land my jab, and then I can let the right hand go. I mean, he does have good, a prime Brook does have good shot selection. Don't get me wrong, he was quite a skillful fighter back in the day, but he just clearly doesn't have that same fluency as some of the more stylistic fighters do. It's the one thing that's always struck me about him. Just to go back to take his career in the round, really. I mean, he's fought 3 great names. 4, you should count Sean Porter. I think he legitimately won that fight in America, so he'll always get credit for that. But I don't like sort of sticking the boot into people in hindsight, because it's such an easy thing to do. But I really go back to the Golovkin fight, and it's if we just kind of look at that, if we think that Brook is about to retire, which I think he should, to be honest. For someone, Brook, even as skillful as he is, for him to have jumped up 2 weight classes, I think, if I'm not mistaken, to fight like someone like Triple G back in, when was it, 2016, who was the most feared guy in boxing. No one wanted to go near Golovkin. It was a really insane thing to do, and the big risk clearly didn't pay off for him. He clearly took some punishment in that fight, and showed a lot of balls and a lot of heart. But I think he got something beaten out of him, frankly, by Golovkin in that fight, and then Spence as well. That was a more competitive fight, but he was sort of outclassed a bit towards the end, I think. So,
but on Golovkin at the time, like, Brook was struggling to get the names. He beat Porter, then got stabbed, then he fought Frankie Gavin, Jojo Dan, and that other twat from Canada. Then he's looking around, and AJ's getting on the pay-per-view, and AJ's doing. It wasn't Wembley by then, but he's starting to grow, and Bellew was on pay-per-view then, and Hayes still knocking about, and Frochman just done his 2 fights with Groves, and he's sitting there fighting Frankie Gavin. The opportunity comes up, he takes it, and then on the other point to that, we're already being told that he's a 154 fighter. So although on paper it says he's jumped up 2 weights, but really he's only jumped up 1 weight. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like I say, you was right what you say. At the time, Golovkin, I think he knocked out like 18 people straight. You know, it was one of the biggest puncher in the sport. Yeah, I mean, but it's a hindsight job, innit?
It is, and you know, clearly we do this in boxing. You know, we look back on fighters' careers when they've retired, and I think what we're going to do with Kell Brook is we're going to say, you know, wow, he won a welterweight title at the time where Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao also held welterweight belts. For politics reasons, we can spend the whole night talking about the reasons why those fights weren't really viable and didn't really happen at the time. The Amir Khan fight, you know, classic. We're probably going to talk about that. That didn't happen. That's an indictment of Khan, I think, more so than Brook, because I think Brook has always fancied himself in that fight and has, you know, sort of pursued that fight for probably half of his
Go into that, Stephen,
career.
if you want, because we're moving on to there anyway. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a really missed opportunity. That fight could happen now. You know, the Khan Brook fight could happen next, but I really don't think, you know, boxing fans will really care about it that much. I mean, we'll probably tune in. That there's probably guaranteed to be good banter and, you know, insults being exchanged in the build up, and there'll probably be a knockout in that fight as well. So we'll tune in, but it won't be for a title. It won't really be deciding anything other than a bit of a grudge match, you know, years past its sell-by date. Let's be honest about it. So, you know, I think I would lay the blame with Khan for that. I think he's docked that fight, and really, for all the people whose Khan has fought in his career, you know, I get it. He's fought Maidana, he fought Canelo, you know, I'm not going to, you know, start questioning people's heart and balls for stepping in a boxing ring and fighting all these guys that he did. But he ducked that fight with Brook. Brook won the title at 147, and Khan had said before then, and he'd said for like, oh, if he does this, then I'll fight him. And he said before the Sean Porter fight, he said, if Brook somehow beats him, then I'll fight Kell Brook and I'll beat him up just to take the title. And it didn't happen. So just kind of in a kind of legacy point of view for both of them, at that time in that glamour division and at 147, it's just a bad indictment for them and for the fans. It's just a real shame they couldn't have come to an agreement, because it would have been a really hot fight, and the winner would have been in a great position to fight the other guys at 147 as well.
Yep, good assessment, Stephen. Just before we let you go, obviously, final point, Tyson Fury said today he's not going to fight in December. We thought he was going to fight against Agit Kabayel. When do you expect to see Fury in the ring again, and who will be in the opposite corner when he does return?
I mean, it's a good question, really. I've heard names like Takam being mentioned. It's not going to be anybody who'll pose too much risk, I don't think. I know we've seen the Otto Wallen fight. You know, there are some banana skins in the heavyweight division in particular, but I think it's a stay busy fight for Fury. It's for him to take over and, you know, remind the UK fans he's still kind of keeping active and stuff to help promote this AJ fight, which I hope happens as well. I guess you guys have been talking kind of at length about Deontay Wilder and his sort of, you know, shenanigans recently.
Well, I mean, we mentioned it the other week on the Bellew of the Week, but I'm wondering now that Fury's not going to have this soft one and there's talk of like legal action or whatever, are we going to see him return in 2021 against Deontay Wilder? Do you think maybe that third fight could be back on the table?
I hope not, is my honest answer. I don't know. I don't know what legal grounds Wilder's team has to kind of force this. From what I understand, a deadline has been missed, and I think that's deliberate from Team Wilder's point of view. I think they're very well. Deontay Wilder is very good at kind of sowing confusion and chaos, and, you know, trying to a bit like Donald Trump. Frankly, he's good at, you know, distracting attention and blame from where it lies, which is with him, to kind of take responsibility. So, as you guys have probably said, or some guys have probably said on the call, I think he's burnt up a lot of goodwill, Deontay Wilder. I think Fury's probably serious when he says, "I'm not going to, you know, defend against Wilder because he's, you know, questioned me as a cheat, you know, and all this kind of stuff." Why would he, basically? So the question I would just throw out there, kind of in closing here to you guys, is just is this a temporary thing that Wilder's doing, or is this like kind of like a permanent thing where he's lost his mind, basically, where Fury has just completely, ruined him as a fighter? Is this kind of a Calzaghe, Jeff Lacey job that's been done here, where Wilder's kind of never the same again?
Good question, yeah.
We don't know. We don't know, frankly. Wilder will always have that right hand. He'll always have a puncher's chance. But I don't know. Maybe Fury over those two fights really kind of dented his sort of his self-confidence and belief, which is very, very important at that level, I think.
When Wilder,
as always, the truth will play out in the ring. Who's this jumping in? Hang on, it's Hater Dave Loback. Sorry, Dave, go ahead there.
When Wilder first came out with that video, it was with the zoom ins on the gloves and his little narration, I thought it was his way of trying to drum up interest for the rematch, because he was focused in on one specific excuse. But since then, he's rambled on further. He said his trainer betrayed him and drugged his water. Of course, there was the suit was too heavy. Like the number of excuses are the real problem here. Sometimes a guy's got to lie to himself. At least pick one excuse. Sometimes a guy has got to lie to the fans, get them involved, and sort of give them hope, give them interest, give them a reason to pay to see a third fight. So I don't think that's available anymore. He's just come out with too many excuses, and the number of excuses means that you can't. Like if Fury did cheat you with the gloves, then why the hell would you get rid of your trainer? It's not his fault.
Exactly. He's contradicting himself.
Yeah. And why don't you just wear a different Black History Month costume next time you fight? That's a little bit less heavy. If that was the problem. I mean,
Dave, I think these conspiracies and whatever have been out there for a while, haven't they? Look around the LDBC and all that. These have been floating about, and he's decided the time is right now to pick up on them for whatever reason, whether it's to promote the fight, whether it's to pull a certain fan base in his favour or something. I don't know what his reasoning is, but these have been floating for a while, Dave. He's just hooked himself onto them lately.
Well, fair enough. I mean, people have done the work for him in a sense, and like getting these pictures of the gloves deformed and stuff, and coming up with their own theories. Just pick one. Pick the one that you think is likely, or that's
like Pacquiao's shoulder. Remember, against Mayweather, that was his one, wasn't it?
Just pick one excuse. Don't pick a whole list of excuses. When you got your ass kicked. Let's be real.
I think his ego is so fragile, and he has so many yes men around him, and that's the way he likes it. For example, in the immediate aftermath, Breland is getting the bullet. Well, J. Diaz is there, so J. Diaz or whatever the way you pronounce his name, he's there for the whole time. He was the one that came out straight away, eyeing his paycheck, saying, "Oh, I wouldn't have necessarily thrown in the towel," when he was getting fucking obliterated, decimated in the corner. Realistically, Breland saved him, or saved a portion of his career that night, and everybody with eyes knows what happened. But so many people, I think Wilder knows that so many people watch boxing with a casual interest in it, that he can just say some shit now and convince people, and if he gets some people on side believing with him, that's enough for him, and that's enough to keep him going. But his ego and his a lot of these fellas with frightening ability have really fragile egos. And that's why they have so many people around him pumping him up all the time. And I think he's one of them. Definitely soured his legacy. But I don't know, even if it affected his confidence, I think he'd still wipe the floor with every other heavyweight in the division probably at the moment. I think I'd still even favour him against AJ with the punching power. But where he goes from here, I don't know.
It's funny you say that, because that's the quandary of Wilder, isn't it? He has that right hand, that equalizer power, but he has the kind of the flaws and boxing ability, frankly. That's always been the case.
I was going to say, to me, over the last 5 years, he hasn't looked like he's got any better, but he definitely hasn't got any worse. That way, he just still has the same ability to turn the fight on its head at any given moment.
But if you remember, I know I keep kind of going back in history and saying, "Oh, if this happened, if that happened," but he was in a really strong position before he fought Fury, when they were apparently trying to negotiate the AJ fight. And we can debate, we can argue who's the better fighter here. I would say AJ is probably a more complete fighter, I think. But in that fight at that time, Wilder's got that right hand, and we've seen, he could have beaten AJ across 2 fights, say, in America, in the UK, but he instead, and he's admitted this now, Eddie Hearn highlighted this, he is right about some
Wouldn't
things.
be like him, even in Ed.
Yeah. But he was right. Wilder did basically admit, publicly that he more or less, cherry picked Fury. I guess from their point of view, they've seen how overweight he was. They thought he'd be a soft touch and stuff. But actually, I think what turned out to be the case was Fury cherry picked him is actually what happened. Kind of the other way around. Sorry, my fucking WhatsApp keeps going here.
That's okay. Maybe it's Eddie sliding into your WhatsApp. Who knows? we shall move on for the evening, Stephen. Thanks for coming on, though. Appreciate your thoughts, sir.
Cheers, dude.
All the best. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Bye.
Stephen Lynch, there, everybody. Good caller. Letting his thoughts known.
Chukwu is in the chat.
Oh, Chukwu's in the chat. Good stuff. Chukwu fell asleep and missed the boxing. I forgot it was even on. Episode 3. The boxing was on.
He always forgets the boxing is on, but never forgets the boxing asylum is on.
He always comes to listen to the boxing being spoke about that he's forgotten to watch. Good old Chukwu. Big fan of Chukwu, Smido, aren't you?
Massive fan of Chukwu, yeah. Big up, Jason.
Absolutely. He's been here for a long time. Talking to people who've been here for a long time, this is episode 399. 400, naturally, coming next, as numbers tend to work, is next week. Hey to Dave Lowback. You were here from the very start, episode 1. Go back and listen to it, Dave. You were here from the very, very start. How you feeling?
It's exciting to reach that milestone. The time has really flown by. I mean, I know we've taken off a few weeks. I've certainly taken off several weeks, but that's only because I'm working here and there. But the consistency specifically of the hosts, Maddie in the beginning, then Andy, now you, Steve, has really kept us going. And that's seriously, honestly, been tremendous. So thank you guys all for that.
Well done, boys. Well done. Hey to Dave Lowback. Yeah, episode 399. Stephen Lynch has left us, but rapping Rob Kelly is still here. So is Hey to Dave Lowback, Adam Smido Smith, and Ozzy Smith as well. Just before we leave the Kell Brook Crawford situation, Ozzy, Rupert Goebel left a question in last week, which could be a moot point now. I'm not actually sure. He said, will IFL TV be going out to the USA for Crawford versus Brook now that Hearn and Sky have dropped Brook? And if not, will all the other YouTube channels who are Matchroom FC be heading out there, or are they going to hide behind the virus? Was Cougs out there, are they?
No, neither of them were. And it's not hiding behind the virus. You've got to remember that some of them, if they go over there, they've got to isolate for 2 weeks coming back. So it does make it, an issue that, and it's not a case of, that they've got to stay inside then for 2 weeks. They could miss out on 2 shows. Anything could happen. You've also got to remember that some of these as well aren't full-time employees, and they just do. IFL different naturally, that they employ people, but they were never going to go. Whether you had what's it called in, you had Umar in the Warren bubble on Friday, Coogan of course in his Matchroom bubble on Saturday. There's only a couple of others then, and I'm not sure if they're like they're full-time employees. So if they work as well. They may be not able to, afford to isolate for 2 weeks. So I'm not going to criticise them for that. Certainly not. I mean, it says it all. Even the Matchroom US shows that they've got going on at the moment, Hearn doesn't fly out for them purely on the basis that he just can't afford, the time to having to stay inside for 2 weeks. So it's one of them. I'm not going to criticise them for that. For that reason, I wouldn't say it's hiding behind a virus. It's more so that the after effects of just simply having to stay indoors for 2 weeks, and it puts everything on hold. For the videos, that realistically now, Steve, you can do them all over Zoom anyway. For if you want to speak to Crawford, Brook, was there a like the one like Aram, he's open on Zoom as well, so. There's ways and means around it, and I think until that isolation goes, we probably won't see many YouTubers going out anymore.
Goes out to the YouTubers. We're on YouTube, The Boxing Asylum, over on YouTube. Give us a subscribe, a like, a thumbs up, thumbs down, a comment, whatever you want to do. We're here for you, helping you through on this Sunday evening. Then if anybody got a chance to watch the undercard, the Joshua Franco versus Andrew Maloney rematch. I know if Andy would have been here this week, he's taking care of a bit of business, but he would have definitely seen this. ESPN pissed me off a little bit because I sort of agreed with their sentiment. I think it was Tessitore, obviously Ward and Tim Bradley were there. Bradley was getting a bit over the top on the whole thing. You know, I do think that Andrew Maloney's jab and the thumb did cause the swelling on Joshua Franco's eye, but right from as soon as the fight was finished, now Maloney was the home fighter, so it was in ESPN's interest for him to win the fight. They were shouting and screaming about the commission, asking the commission to watch the video replays and get this all sorted. Now, it did take a long time. It was ridiculous, about half an hour after the fight went to a no decision, that the commission eventually, Bob Bennett, Jay Nady, the referee Russell Mora, Dave's mate, Robert Bird, all came to the conclusion that it was a no decision because the swelling on the eye had been caused by a headbutt. I don't believe it had been caused by a headbutt, but ESPN were absolutely rampant. Oh, it's been caused by a headbutt. The question for you, Dave, is even though they came to the right decision, ESPN, for me, are starting to get a little bit too much involved in the conclusion of fights. Now, they did this whenever Tyson Fury fought Otto Wallin. They went to the corner and explained to Ben Davidson something that was going on. They did it again last night. They were going, the commission needs to look at our replays. They had ESPN guys showing them the replays. Now, I know they were the broadcasters and all that type of stuff, but they just seem like they're getting a bit too much involved in the fights, Dave. Am I being a miserable old bastard here? Or is the fact that we get to the right conclusion, which we didn't seem to in this fight, mean that we can let ESPN off with this?
Yeah, see, that's my thing. Like, I don't care if they get involved as long as they're helping the correct result to be reached. So in the case of Davidson versus Wallin, I thought it was fine because I think it should be clearly communicated to the corner, how an official has ruled so that they're aware of everything and they know what's going on. And it's not just a big fog of war situation in the middle of a fight. Now, it shouldn't be ESPN's role to do that, but the fact that they did it, I mean, at least the knowledge got out there. I think that should be the commission's job to ensure the corner knows what the hell's going on. And in this case, I didn't see the fight, but I heard it was an absolute disaster. People are pissed off at boxing. And maybe I don't think it's ESPN's fault in this case that the decision that was reached. I think the commission, it was just an absolute shambles.
Yeah, Bradley afterwards was shouting it's a disgrace and blah, blah, blah. And I was having a bit of not a back and forth, but some guy on Twitter made the correct point. Bradley's a former world champion. He's irate that another former world champion like Maloney's getting shafted. I sort of get that, but I think with Bradley, it's a bit of a persona, a caricature that he's made for himself, and he's shouting. And Andre Ward was a bit more measured. He said, well, let's listen to the decision first of all and see what conclusion they've come to and blah, blah, blah. And it did take a long time and it was ridiculous, but I mean, how can you get your heart rate pumping that much over Franco against Maloney, especially old Bob Arum? I think we'll move on, shall we, before we upset anybody. Tavoris Cloud, haven't heard that name in a while, was supposed to be making a comeback next week for the first time in 6 years. Unfortunately, he's disappeared off the BoxRec schedule, which is a little bit upsetting, but hopefully Tavoris will return at some point. Not going to labour you with that one, rapping Rob Kelly. Did you manage to see the Katie
Clouds
Taylor?
have disappeared. It's all clear now.
Clouds of disappointment on this Sunday evening. It might not be getting any better for you, Rob. As I asked, did you watch the Katie Taylor versus Miriam Gutierrez fight?
I did, actually. I did. There wasn't much else on, so I was looking on YouTube last night. Katie Taylor is phenomenal. I know we slag women's boxing all the time and we're not interested, but she is, like, nobody ever slates her ability. Some of the shit that she's able to do in the ring, if Ireland had a male fighter like her, you wouldn't be able to pick up the paper in the daytime. He'd be a fucking global superstar. Her personality, born again Christian, very humble, doesn't talk that much, doesn't give it the verbal. So kind of, I suppose, doesn't help her become an even bigger star than she should be. But she's done it all in women's boxing, world titles, Olympic gold medals, brought so much attention to the Olympics herself with her 7 or 8 world title wins that she had leading up to it. So for me, I think I've spoken about this. She looked amazing last night, very, very sharp. Thought in the 2 fights against Pursoon and the one before that even, she didn't look too great. And I think at her age, there's going to come a time where someone beats her now. Like I really do believe that. I think a lot of people would give Pursoon one of the 2 fights, if you're looking at it objectively. But you know, what does it say? It was on free to YouTube, free to Facebook. I don't think she's going to get people to go into their pocket to support her as a pay-per-view star, unfortunately. But like, to hear Sky with the narrative last night, now she was sensational last night. Some of the stuff she was doing in the ring, her opponent hung in there as well, very tough. I thought the fight should have been stopped at least fucking 3 times. Like, they could let her get to the 10th round. The girl didn't win a second of any of the rounds. She was so badly outclassed. The girl, like, you're looking at a girl of the experience of Katie Taylor, as I mentioned, Olympics, 2 Olympic campaigns, 1 Olympic gold medal, 17 fights undefeated, multiple world champions. She's fighting her mandatory, and your one looks boxer size level. Like, she looks so out of her depth. Nearly knocked out in the first round, nearly knocked out in the third round, nearly knocked out in the 6th round. They just let her take, like, the corner as well. They let her take so much punishment. Now, I know it's not the same with the women's sports, the 2-minute rounds, and that there is a kind of an element of a safety factor for the fighters, but they should have pulled the girl out. Like, she got humiliated for being, I suppose it was an achievement for her to finish the fight, but to hear Adam Smith and Macklin, I mean, Macklin has said Katie Taylor is a superstar 3 times. By the time she started a ring walk to a minute and a half gone in round 1, he's called her a global superstar 3 times. Like, we could tell that the Sky guys are reading off a script. She's a great fighter, man, and she's a huge star in Ireland, but she's not a global superstar. Let's be honest about it. Like, so why he was coming out with all that, I don't know. Not our Smitho, the other Adam Smith, was pulling out the Brave card a lot, and she trained very hard as well. Don't forget Katie Taylor's opponent. So we started to hear Brave after round 3. Brave she was, as I say, they should have put. No, I just do not understand why they didn't pull her out of the fight. I thought it was disgraceful to let her take shots, shot after shot like that, clean shots. I mean, Katie Taylor dipped and threw the lead left hook about 20 to 30 times in the fight and caught her with all of them. She never missed her with the left hook for the whole night. It was just the level in class was just shocking. So it's not her fault. There's not that depth in women's boxing. They're talking about maybe a catchweight fight with Clarissa Shields, one of the Serranos, or a crossover fight for Cyborg from the UFC world. And Hader Dave will know more about this, but if she was going to cross over and fight any of them in the UFC, now I don't know about the weights, but I'd like to see her fight. What's the Brazilian chick that smashed up Ronda Rousey and Amanda Nunes, big hitter. I think if she was going to go that way, that'd be the way to go. But yeah. I mean, look, Eddie last night then gave a big impassioned speech where he was giving you his sales pitch about women's boxing and how much they've done and this journey that they've been on. There's always a journey in there, journey in everywhere, journey to the center of the earth, journey back in time to fucking rob Pee Wee Herman's wardrobe based on what he was wearing last night, man. Absolute fucking shocker that was, Eddie. Evening, Ed. But yeah, the Turtleneck King, Turtleneck Mafia. But yeah. Well, interesting enough in terms of watching Katie Taylor, the stuff she was doing in the ring, but no other great love for the card, to be honest with you.
Yeah, good to see Jane Coach knocking about on the couch. It's a shame Jane wasn't around in this type of era. I've got a lot of time for Jane Coach. Big fan, as you all know. Onto the undercard then. I mean, you can talk about Taylor if you want, Ozzy, but a couple of observations from me. First of all, I think that I don't believe Ebony Bridges is a real boxer until I actually see her in the ring. Rachel Ball beat Georgelina Giannini. I think that Ball is okay, but she might lose the rematch to Shannon Courtney, which Eddie is probably licking his lips over right now. Also, another L for Eduardo. John Doherty losing to Jack Cullen. I didn't see the Cash Farouk fight. Just give us the rundown over what you enjoyed and what you didn't, Oz.
Well, I'll start with Katie Taylor. I saw a brilliant point online that basically in women's boxing they should do away with mandatories just because the depth isn't there, and I completely agree with that because that Gutierrez last night was trash. She was completely outclassed. There was no quality. She was awful. Absolutely awful. And I agree with Rob that the fight should have been waved off. And I don't want to see her crossing over, to fight UFC people or anything like that. The one fight I want to see is her against Shannon. And I think that's the most competitive fight that we can see in that division. I don't want to see her fight Serrano. I mean, that Serrano fights at like fly or super fly and then jumps up to lightweight. So I think we can clearly see that, there's going to be a weight issue there as well. So again, that's no interest. And the Shields fight would be just laughable. I mean, what weight would that be at? Sort of catch weight. Again, so the one fight I want to see is her against Chantel Cameron. Undercard wise, Terry Harper was good. Battered Thunders, absolutely battered her. Looked decent, to be fair. Arguably, probably her best performance of her career. Would like to see the Jonas rematch, naturally, but they're talking about you, so fine. Not gonna turn your nose up at that. I thought Rachel Ball was fortunate against Giannini, and I'm not the only one. I know Peter Fury had Giannini winning, Sam Jones had Giannini winning as well, and I thought there was an agenda massively that, but essentially Ball was throwing loads of shots, so they were deeming her as active, but she was hitting thin air the majority of the time. And look, you can throw a million shots, but if you don't land one, who cares? It's worth nothing. And I thought Giannini was certainly landing the better shots. And Macklin and Smith even admitted it at the end, or halfway through, the fact that Giannini's landing the better shots. She's just not landing enough of them, whereas Ball's throwing shots may not be landing as many, but is more active. And I'm thinking that is wrong. And to give her, the cards were appalling. To give her a round and 2 rounds in the fight was a disgrace. And I say it again, you come over at your peril to be in the away corner because the cards are appalling. It's like the pre-done. As for Doherty Cullen, I didn't realise Jack Cullen was with Michael Jennings full time. And if I did, it would have probably swayed my opinion on the way the fight would go, because I'm a big fan of Jennings and his brother, and I genuinely believe they improve every fighter they have. May not always necessarily get the win, but you can see massive improvements in each fighter they've got. And I thought Cullen was excellent. I thought he used all his experience, and he's not like an older head in there, but he's had the fights, and he's suffered the losses, but he's learned from them. Look, Doherty got beat, but he's young and he'll certainly learn from that, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And fair play to him for wanting to take these fights. I'm certainly not going to criticise or make fun of a guy, who gets beat, at 9-0, because I would rather see Doherty against Cullen than Doherty knock out, 5 or 6 tomato cans and build his record to 15-0. So certainly want to see more of these fights. Doherty will come back. He's clearly got quality. He's just young, but he'll learn a hell of a lot more from it than he would have done, fighting some trash last night. As for Jack Cullen, that was a British eliminator last night, so I think the champion's Lerone Richards, and he's going to be fighting Willie Hutchinson, so it'll be the winner to fight, arguably that fight. Cash Farouk looked class, looked really good.
What about his power, Ozzy's power?
Farouk, I don't think he's not that one-punch knockout artist, but I think he puts his shots together, and it's timing and accuracy that Avila's. Me personally, if I would have stopped the fight last night just because it was a sustained beating. But he could clearly take a shot. It was just one-sided. But I like Farouk, and I think he's one of them that say better fighters, he might break them down, because they're going for it. That Aviles was just basically soaking everything up. But an impressive debut, a fight that he was more than expected to win, but he looked really good in doing it. He didn't, like labour to win. I thought he looked really good. And other referees would have waved it off last night. And I didn't watch that Hart Springer because it was on Facebook. I don't know why they can't just put them all on, Sky.
It was on YouTube as well, Ozzy, I think.
Everything was on YouTube last night, wasn't it? It was free to air, basically, for the women's show, etc.
Why did they do that, do you think?
Well, it was they keep banging on about wanting to drum up more interest, and the best way is that right? Let's stick it behind the paywall. Sorry, not let's take it out, but like paywall is in the subscription and put it free to air. I've no idea what the numbers were on YouTube, etc., things like that. But it's the only way, they'll try and get people watching it. But at the same time as well, it did nothing for it, did it? Taylor fought an absolute tomato can, which was shite and wasn't exactly a good watch. Harper again was okay. And Ball, Giannini again, it wasn't the best of fights. So again, is it the appeal there? I'm not too sure. Like I said, I'll watch a handful of fights. A, if I've got money on him, or B, it's Taylor against Cameron. Aside from that, I'm not really interested. But I would watch Savannah Marshall against Clarissa Shields, to be fair as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that one. Shout out to Joe Kennedy, who's just joined the chat. Good lad, Joe. Yeah, a few things from what Ozzy said there. I'm looking forward to Lerone Richards against Hutchinson. Hutchinson hasn't been tested against anybody, really, and Lerone Richards, I rate him. Similar to Denzel Bentley. I'll be coming to Ozzy on Denzel Bentley a little bit later on. Cash Farouk reminds me a little bit of Ishan Pickering. Might be a bit before the time of a feud. Pickering could punch a little bit more, I suppose, but yeah, Cash Farouk has that Ishan Pickering vibe about him. A bit of a vibe about you, Smido. Let's jump in with a question from Niall Walsh over on patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. He says, after reading your post from a few months ago on Frank Warren versus Eddie Hearn, this is something that I wrote. He said, what does the panel think of the fate of boxing on Sky? With Eddie seemingly pursuing a launch with DAZN in the UK, who does Smido think will fill the void on Sky? I know MTK has been mooted. How do you think they would fare? Who do you see as the face of the promotional body, etc.?
Well, MTK are already filling the void, aren't they? And if any listeners want to head over to the Boxing Asylum YouTube channel, we done a question on this as a bit of a special that wasn't on a pod, so you might want to go there. And much of this subject was discussed. Yeah, I mean, the obvious one, people would think that that Fastcar is just going to nip over and do the Zone UK, but I think that at the moment he's got it pretty cushy. He's got the Zone in America, chucking a few quid about, and supposedly got a few more quid now. Canelo's zipped off for the time being, and he's in the UK. He's got the pay-per-view market boshed off, and he's got the Sky exclusivity. And if he is to be believed, he's looking to extend that Sky exclusivity with boxing. And to be honest with you, with Frank settled in over the road at BT, why would Sky want to look anywhere else? And even if they wanted to look somewhere else, who are they going to get? Big Mick ain't going to fill them dates. Big Dennis ain't going to fill them dates, and Big Steve ain't going to fill them dates. So, I mean, maybe given an opportunity to build over years, absolutely those guys would be capable of it. But the setup's already there. They are milking the shit out of that casual market. We're going to get, we did have scheduled 3 pay-per-views in about 6 weeks. Now it's down to 2. So yeah, I don't think there's any sign of him being replaced, or him either him being replaced by Sky or him walking away from Sky. I don't really see it, to be honest. I think they're taking the absolute piss out of the market. But if they can continue to get away with it, then I think they will, unfortunately, Steve.
Shout out to Eddie Hearn, doing a great job, says Smido, on this Sunday evening, episode 399. All the big names, the big hitters are coming out the woodwork here. It's only Donny Baseball. How are you, Donny? Keeping well?
I don't know.
Yeah, sure am, Steve. Good to be back.
Great to hear that voice. Donny. Did you catch anything from the weekend? A bit of Brook and Crawford, maybe?
Oh, of course, yeah. Had to watch that one. Couldn't miss that. Yeah, I've been kind of, on quarantine for the last year and a half, but I'm back, and that was a great fight to watch.
The pandemic's only been going on 6 months, but he got married as well. So,
yeah, man, that was an amazing fight. I mean, I was actually thinking to myself, if you ever seen the Sylvester Stallone movie Over the Top, where he's arm wrestling, truck drivers at the rest stops and things like that. No.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry, Don.
Oh, well.
Anyways,
in other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is that when Bud Crawford changes stances from southpaw to right-handed, or from right-handed to southpaw, he's found something, and it's in now. The other guy's in big trouble, because when he switched that stance, he took that jab away from Brook, and all of a sudden it was like a totally different fighter. And he started. He took the jab away, and he just started basically turning on his dominance. And then he timed him, and he caught him with that peach of a shot. And then it was all over. And you know what? The crazy thing is that it didn't even look that hard. It didn't even look like that hard of a shot. But he just caught him at the right time, stunned him, and that was all she wrote. I know Terrence Crawford is 33 years old. My one worry is that Bob Arum is going to dangle the Pacquiao fight in front of him and is going to say, if you want that Pacquiao fight, then you got to sign up for like another 3 or 4 years, and then we're never going to see the Spence fight. That's my worry. Because I know that he beats Pacquiao. I know it's like a legacy fight for him. Like if he does it, he's going to get a lot of money.
But Pacquiao's on PBC anyway, so how does Arum have the power there anymore? Like Pacquiao's been with PBC for the last. He's on a long-term PBC deal now, so.
Well, all right, yeah. Well, that's why I've been away from the sport for a year.
Donnie, tell us about the Pacquiao David Diaz fight that you watched last week.
Yeah, sorry, we got to come back with baby steps, Stephen. Baby steps, But anyways, yeah, I mean, I basically don't want, whatever happens, I just don't want Crawford to get locked down in a long-term contract with Arum, because I think it would be deleterious to his future career. And really, like, he's at the point now at 33, he needs the big fights and he needs the big names, and I'm so excited for that to happen, but I really hope that it can.
Good man, Donny. Stick with us. We're going on to Bellew of the Weeks later. A bit of a Dave Allen obituary piece as well from Aussie coming up for episode 399. One of our friends, James Leadbeater, asked me whatever happened to Romeo Romeo. Yeah, it's quite the character, this guy. I found out an article on him, James, so I'll put it in Patreon for you. It was written in September 2020. This is the fella who didn't eat sweets or crisps, and his dad took him out to live in the forest, and he's got his full name here. I think it was Romeo Valentino, hang on, let's have a look. Casanova Romeo. He was quite the character, had dreadlocks, built like a brick shit out, a real bodybuilder's physique. He's disappeared off the scene. I think he had problems with depression, apparently. The chap might know more than me. There was a BBC documentary filmed on him and everything. Anyway, pro boxing fans got in touch with him and wrote an article, James, so I'll put that for you to have a look. No point in us going into it any further. Okay, then, Aussie, let's not hold you off any longer. The great man has retired. He's hung up the gloves. On the week, Des O'Connor left us, all the boxing greats disappearing. Dave Allen, he's no more, Aussie. What have you got to say, apart from the fact that I believe he'll be back next summer at the absolute latest? Is this the end of Dave?
Well, mate, I got to admit, I shed a tear before, and it was tears of joy that finally he will leave the sport, and we won't have to hear any of this banter, seeing him rocking up to, weigh-ins in dressing gowns and slippers, supping iron brew, and all the other bullshit that comes with, Dave Allen. This is a guy that, quite frankly, has, no puns intended, punched above his weight for a number of fights. You've got to remember that he's never won a title, always seen himself above area level, English level, and quite frankly, British level until recently. And now it's like he's spat his dummy out, basically. He's had enough. I don't know if, something's made him, like the pennies dropped. He should have been fighting Chippy Tits, Christopher Lovejoy. That fell through. He was turning down fights against Mark Bennett, an area level guy, Simon Vallily, basically an English level guy. And after that, he basically said, right, I want to fight someone who's like 260. And then he was announced recently on this Conor Benn card, I think only this week. And now he's decided to call it quits. I mean, look, will he be back? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But we'll wait and see. But it's one of them. Am I going to lose any sleep over it? Absolutely not. I'm sure Eddie Hearn will, because usually if the pay-per-view's collapsing, he presses that red button, the Allen button, and Dave comes and saves the day. So that won't be happening anymore. But no, I don't know what he's going to do, because he's handed over the reins of training Danny Morrell to Dominic Ingle. I certainly don't see Danny Morrell calling it quits with Dominic Ingle and going back to Dave Allen as a trainer.
Morrell's going to look like Schwarzenegger in a couple of months, isn't he?
Yeah. So we'll imagine a big stocky bastard coming now. Fuck all to him as well. But we'll ultimately wait and see. But again, he's always been an attention seeker. How many times has he retired before? 3 or 4 times. So there's, it's a case of I won't be surprised if we don't. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't. I won't be shocked if he actually stays true to his word and doesn't call it quits. I wouldn't be shocked, to see him, like, oh, I've had Christmas off and I was in a bad place and pissed off, with the fights falling through. And now, like, I'm refreshed. I've eaten a lot of food and, the, what is it? Operation White Rhino, it'll be what, 5.0? He's back happening. Let's go at it again. I want to fight Alexander Povetkin. I'm 3 fights away from Joshua. We've heard it all before. So
it's like you wrote the book on him. You're the one who comes up with his lines, aren't you?
The Rhinoettes come up with his lines.
How do you think it could have been, Ozzy? Any fights he should have taken? Where do you think he could have gone if he'd have carried on going? The Dubois fight seems a bit of a strange one, turning down all that money.
Yeah, but look, from a payday perspective, yeah, he certainly should have taken that. I mean, fucking hell, £750,000. That's a fucking huge payday. But at the same time, I think he'd have got seriously hurt. So I don't think, it was the worst decision. I just feel like, looking at it, look, he had that big opportunity against Lemroy Thomas and blew it. Came back and a cut in the second fight. Look, that happens. That's boxing. And then it's just like, going to Paris to fight Tony Yoka and you've barely trained. And look, you're not fighting, tin cans. Yoka's a decent operator. And I think he admits that himself. Then he gets a good win against Nick Webb. And look, he built, he got a bit of, a bit of momentum behind him. Beat Lucas Brown, which, look, I thought Brown had beat him, and it was an impressive finish. And then the David Price fight, that's a fight I fucking tipped him to win, and Price was just a level above. I just feel like the Luis Ortiz fight would have never done anything for him, and I think he said it was a bit of desperation for cash. The Dillian White fight, again, it's always been said by quite a few people that certainly in training he's got ability. It's just about transferring it over. And I do wonder if it'd have been built from a, like a fighter perspective and gone more of a, like an area level English type of thing, it may well have suited him. But at the same time as well, I don't think he'd have been getting, he wouldn't have been headlining cards on Sky. He wouldn't have been, like getting offered massive money to fight Dubois had he not have gone the route he'd gone, because building all that profile online, and he had that backing. I remember when he fought, when it was the Kell Brun Kerrol Spence card, Dave Allen outsold Kell Brook on that card when he fought Lemroy Thomas. He sold more tickets, and Brook sold quite a few that night. So he had that backing. So you've got to think that he probably wouldn't have, had he have gone, like the traditional route, he probably wouldn't have been where he is today. And look, I criticise him type of thing, and it's more because you hear the same stuff every time, that he gets an opportunity and then he says he's not trained, he's not done this and he's not done that. I'm thinking, well, like, you're your own worst enemy. If you're not willing to train, then, you shouldn't be getting in the ring type of thing. So from that perspective, that's why I, criticise him. But at the same time as well, you've got to hold your hand up in a way and say, well done, because he's earned a fortune from somebody with limited capability, bought a lot of property, which naturally, you've got assets to your name, he can set himself up. And I think there's just a video that's just come out now, wasn't it? Released from the Usyk camp, what he's just come out of. And where it was basically, he was walking towards Usyk with his hands down, took basically, like a short shot, and he was well and truly gone. And if that was in a fight, Usyk would have been all over him. And I do wonder if, if that was, just a bit of a, look, that's me done type of thing. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. There's a lot of people who've come out now and said, look, you've called it right. We don't want to see you fight again. Let's hope these promoters then stay true to the word and don't offer him opportunities. If they genuinely believe it's the right time, he should call it quits.
Yeah, the lads in the chat making me laugh there. I like that bit of Dave Allen's Bellew-esque statement saying he wanted to spend time with his family or his wife and kids that he doesn't have or whatever it was. Shout out to Dave. He might return, he might not. Who knows?
Just leave him alone.
Exactly. Just leave the bugger alone. He's only just retired, and we're talking about him already. The only Dave I'm interested in now is Hater Dave. Question came in from Kaiser Koba for you, Dave. He says, "Why are we talking about an exhibition between Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson when Barrera and Morales, Dave, have said they are going to have an exhibition? Sign me up for Barrera versus Morales 4. It's going to be a bit shit now that they're friends, isn't it, Dave? They don't hate each other anymore."
I didn't know that I know they had respect for each other, but even as recently as, I guess it's not that recent anymore, but Morales Maidana, there was still bad blood between Barrera and Morales, but I guess that's kind of getting into the history territory at this point. So yeah, I'm glad they're friends, because I mean, sharing those kind of battles, it's nice that they can be friends, and I like and got respect for both guys, a lot of them.
Morales is such a villain. I wouldn't rule out that he just pretended to be friends to set up this exhibition so he won't shake hands with Barrera again after the bearings.
Yeah, he just that one just like eats at him. He I think that probably eats at him more than anything, because he hated Barrera, and then he still and then he didn't get credit for beating him the first time, which I don't think he deserved. Actually, I think Barrera did win that first one. Then the second one, Morales probably did deserve the win, and they gave it to Barrera. Then the third one, Barrera just kind of beat him up pretty good, I think. As down the stretch, it was a good fight, but I think Barrera won it fairly well. So it's got to be frustrating when a guy has your number like that, especially a guy who, they said Barrera was getting on the end of his career before that first Morales fight, and then he came out and gave him hell. Regarding the question, I mean, I don't want to talk about either one of those. The way that we as boxing fans talk about stuff is just ridiculous and absurd in general. I mean, look at us. We spent about 10 minutes talking about Dave Allen. Dave Allen, where is he? Is he relevant to the boxing world? I mean, in a business sense, I guess he is. But it's a bit funny the way that we also spent, I think. I mean, I know this is sort of a European, our audience is very European and specifically British. So it makes some sense that we talk more about the British fighters. But we also spent, I think, more time talking about Kell Brook and what he could have been, rather than the guy who just beat his ass, Terrence Crawford, the guy who's on top right now. It's a bit funny the way boxing fans' minds work, I think, and the things we choose to talk about. We shouldn't be talking about either Jones, Tyson, or Barrera Morales, but I guess I'd rather talk about Barrera Morales.
If anything, on the upside to that, if it makes the younger fans go back and watch that trilogy, I mean, I know when the first lockdown hit, I was spending all my nights going back because there was no fights even on the horizon, so I was going back looking at all the classic fights, and I watched the three of them. I kind of watch them always at Christmas as well for some reason with a few drinks, but unbelievable fights. So if you haven't seen them, any of the younger guys, definitely go back and watch the Morales Barrera trilogy. You just, you miss HBO again when you do watch it, but tremendous.
Yeah, an amazing trilogy, especially the first fight. Also, the Rafael Marquez, Israel Vasquez trilogy is class too, but Barrera Morales is one of my all-time favourite trilogies. Let's move on, shall we, and clear something up from last week. Yes, last week I mentioned about Devin Vargas, the heavyweight, who I always say is deaf. Actually, John Cadd jumped in and cleared this one up finally. I'm sure everyone's on tenterhooks waiting to hear. John Cadd said, Wellings, you're thinking of Dallas Vargas, not Devin Vargas, who was deaf. Good amateur, decent mid-level pro who fought Sergey Kovalev. He retired years ago, though. John Cadd has indeed solved the puzzle, solved the mystery. It was Dallas Vargas, got knocked out by Kovalev in 2010. Bit of a puncher, retired 10 years ago, a.k.a. Deaf Pride. So finally we've got to the bottom of Deathgate. You'll all be thankful to hear. Donny Baseball, not going to trouble you with that one. But what's your thoughts on this Roy Jones-Mike Tyson fight coming up on November the 28th, Donny? Are you appalled, disgusted, can't wait to get stuck in? What are you thinking, Don?
Well, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, when you're watching Tyson, you're watching it because, like, you want to see him, unleashed, completely unrestrained by any sort of, well, by anything really. I mean, it was like watching an animal get let out of its cage. And the rules for this apparent exhibition fight, I know they're trying to market it as if it's going to be a real fight, but in reality, it's my understanding that they have been told not to basically try to knock each other out. So it would have been great in their primes to try to see it, but it's not providing me that kind of excitement when I know the reality is that they're not supposed to completely let it go. And in reality, I think in boxing in general, if everybody isn't giving 100% of themselves and they're not trying to finish their opponent, then it's not really boxing. It's more like a sparring session. And for that reason, I'm not that excited about it. But I mean, look, the two guys that have given a lot to the sport. If people want to watch it and it makes them some money, both of them over the years have had financial problems. I don't necessarily think either one of them is in trouble now, but maybe they're just making their little nest egg or whatever. If people want to watch it, that's fine with me. I'll probably watch it too, but to me, it's not a real fight.
Not a real fight. There are going to be judges, though, so you never know. One of them might kick off if things get a little bit tasty. Shakur Stevenson, I noticed knocking about in the crowd last night. He's fighting Toka Khan Cleary. That's a poor fight, that is, for Steve. I mean, he's learning, he's developing. He'll get rid of Cleary. I saw Toka Khan Cleary fight Kid Galahad, I think it was, in Boston, and Shakur will get rid of him. Go ahead, Rob.
Better to be knocking about in the crowd than in the gas station anyway for Shakur.
Exactly. With Shaka Khan.
Isn't that a replacement opponent, though, for a guy that got COVID?
Yeah, I think, wasn't it Vargas going to fight Bechelt, and then there was going to be something else working at Donny? You're coming back with a bang here.
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Bechelt. They had that in the interview last night when I watched the fight, but Bechelt got COVID, and so they needed a replacement. And Clary, I believe, is from Connecticut, which is where I'm from.
Well said, Donny. Go and hunt Donny down in Connecticut, live and exclusive. Yeah, so next week's obviously going to be episode 400. Not really that much planned, but we will do something. Kaiser Koba suggested maybe talking about our best boxing memories. So the panel will chuck their best boxing memories in, things they remember, maybe favourite boxing memories of all time, things that they don't remember. But I like a good Riddick Bowe story, so no doubt we'll be finding a few of those. Trying to get some old voices back on as well. Lots of the older panel members are being approached. So if you want to come on, discuss your favourite Asylum memories, you're more than welcome. How and when you first started listening, hit me up on the email, nuthousepodcast@gmail.com, or Twitter if you don't want to come on, and just let me know favourite Nuthouse memories, first time you started listening, blah, blah, blah. Joe Kennedy will no doubt be getting stuck into that one. I had something else to come to. Yes, Aussie, next Friday night, in fact, rematch between Denzel Bentley and Mark Heffron. I expected Bentley to get the job done, but I didn't expect it to quite end like that. It was the weekend of eye injuries, I suppose. You couldn't have let Heffron carry on with that. It was a monstrosity.
It was grotesque. It was a horrible eye injury. But look, it wasn't caused by a headbutt or anything. It was purely caused by the fists of Denzel Bentley, and he took advantage of it. And look, it's a cruel way for it to happen, but look, that's boxing, and that's what happens. You do suffer injuries like that. I thought Bentley was excellent. I thought he was spiteful. He looked really, really good. And Heffron just had no answer. Bit disappointed with Heffron. I know it was early in the fight, but I just thought he was looking to load up single shots. And Bentley just took advantage of. He held centre of the ring, counted everything Heffron through, and Heffron just ate shots. Bentley looked really good. I think it's a good win for Queensbury in the basis that I think Bentley will go further in the sport. So he's gone out and he's dominated Heffron there. I thought he won the first fight as well, to be honest. So that's out the way. Felix Cash is his mandatory now. I certainly think Bentley can win that well as well. And look, keep on going. So a brilliant point that giving a bit of praise to Frank, actually, that fair play to backing Denzel Bentley. Not like this world beater amateur, like not a big name, saw something, has invested money into him, and he's now got a British middleweight champion who, like I said, can go a lot further as well. So an enjoyable fight for while it lasted. Heffron can come again. I would just like to see him drop a level or so and then build up some wins. I think a lot of his 25 wins are against just rubbish. And I think now, when he's stepping up these levels, that's when he gets not found out, but look, he's stepped up and he's fought Liam Williams and Denzel Bentley, two decent fighters. And when you've not had that background, and building up, unless you're naturally very good and you've got that ability, it's going to be a struggle. It really is. The undercard was trash, but at the same time as well, they did have two fights fall through on, I think it was the Wednesday or the Tuesday. Two of the better fights, Ramba Beletza against Bork and I forgot one at Superfly, domestic Superfly fight. Both fell through because of the virus, which is a killer. So I won't waste any time on the undercard whatsoever because it was just prospects beating up journeyman is the best way to summarise it.
Yeah, things got a bit weird in the chat there. We seem to have a fake Chuckwoo. There seems to be a Ringer Chuckwoo account going. You couldn't make it up, Rob. There's a Chuckwoo Ringer account in the chat. Apparently, the boys are saying.
You've made it if you're an 80s Coronation Street cast member or you're a clone of another user in the chat. That's how you know you really made it. When you got what you call it, doppelganger or a fucking, what are they called? Imposters.
Yeah, that's the one.
Imposter.
Yeah, doppelganger. Yeah.
Imposter to the Chuckwoo throne.
That's what happens. You got caught napping there, Chuckwoo.
I fell asleep.
What a legend Chuckwoo is, man. He should come on for episode 400, by the way. If his narcolepsy holds up, he should come on for episode 400.
No, he'll try and log on Monday evening or something. Love a bit of Chuckwoo. Shout out to him. Coming on to Value of the Weeks very shortly. Liam Jordan sent in it wasn't really a question, it was more of a rant. I'll read it out now. He said, the amount of matchroom nonsense mentioning Tommy Fury's opponent's record, which was in his fourth fight, but never once bothered about the utter shite matchroom Golden Boys fight to pad their records whilst paying fucking pay-per-view. Eddie has the casuals eating out of his hands, says Liam Jordan. Donnie, sorry, just before we go on to Belly of the Weeks, Donnie, just in case we don't get you back for next week, any thoughts on Errol Spence against Garcia, especially in the light of Spence possibly not being the same? Can we judge him on this fight? Maybe see if his injuries hold up further down the line. Just Spence in general on the car crash and all that. It's an intriguing story, isn't it, Donnie? I mean, if he comes back and beats Garcia handily, it's going to be an amazing story.
Well, just first of all, very much try to be there for the episode 400. But yes, it is a very interesting dynamic that those two will be fighting in. Not only with COVID, but like, as you said, as the car crash took Errol Spence out of commission for how long is it? I kind of forget.
I think he fought Porter in September, so it would be about 14 months. I think I'm right saying that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I got to be honest. I actually think for a comeback fight after a serious car crash in which he sustained substantial injuries, to be coming back and fighting Garcia actually isn't really a bad fight. I mean, I think most of us would probably think that he would come back and take a bit of a softer opponent. But Denny Garcia is, at one time he wasn't undisputed at 140, but he was a unified champion, I believe, at 140. That's a good, tough fight to be taking coming back off of that kind of layoff. And I still think he'll win it just because of the fact that he is an immense talent. And I think it'll certainly give us a good, yardstick to kind of figure out where he is right now in terms of his recuperation and trying to get back to himself. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, I fully expect Spence to win the fight. I think Garcia is on the decline. And I think that, that Spence will ultimately, show his ability. But I'm just wondering how long it'll take for that to happen. I think that if this happened before the accident, before the 14th month layoff, I think that Spence would have dealt with him in probably 5 rounds. But, will he be able to get Garcia out of there, I think is really the question. And then if he does win, I mean, does he jump right into a fight with Crawford, or how long are we going to have to wait for that? I think those will be the interesting things to see. But to me, the real question is, does he get Garcia out of there? If he does, I think he's all the way back. If it goes to the cards, then I think that he still is. He still has some way to go before he gets back to where he was.
Going to be interesting. Looking forward to that one coming up. Again, just before going to Value of the Week, so I always say at the top of the show, please leave us a rating and review over on the old Apple podcast. Few people have done that. First of all, Shep198435 left us 5 stars, and he says, Steve, what did you think such and such fight the panel? I didn't watch it. I do the Asylum. I think there's a point in there somewhere, a good point in there somewhere, I'm sure, from Shep. Thanks for the bit of feedback there. There's the real hot Stig, and as usual, an insightful and knowledgeable podcast. Really, all who do not subscribe to the Asylum are missing out. Tyson Luke, Terminator, 10-year reign, Fury, heavyweight Joe Lewis's record. Oh yeah, baby. Shout out to you, Stig. I'm not going to pronounce it. Undefeated podcast. Evening Eddie. We like a bit of Evening Eddie, Rob. There's a good one there from Mr. HDH.
Love it. Evening Ed. How are you getting on, dude? Still wearing the suit from last night. White turtleneck, beige pants with a beige jacket and white trainers. Fucking act your age, man. Will you get a grip of yourself?
Even talking of Rob getting stuck in there, Tappers says, great combo of insight, in-jokes and reviews. Rapping Rob Kelly literally cracks me up every show. Evening Eddie.
That sounds serious, man. Literally cracked up. Fucking hell, man. Mad Tappers.
Liam J007 says 5 stars for the month of September, pound for pound #1 boxing pod, says Tony Bell. Yes, indeed. We are 6th when you type in boxing on iTunes, so someone must enjoy listening. Finally, Craig says the Asylum comes out swinging, Dave, every week. The Danny Williams of podcasts. I'm going to take that as a compliment, Dave.
Well, we're consistent, and we are still going. We're very much like Danny Williams. And we beat Tyson. I was going to say, evidence has come to light this week that Tony Bellew does indeed occasionally tune in, and he I believe he quoted Rob.
Just leave him alone, will you?
Leave him.
No.
What was the evidence?
The listener sent us in. This listener sent us in the link to the Tris Dixon podcast and read a transcript of it. So we were laughing about it on Bellew of the Week. But when I actually clicked on it, he says, he's like, Tris Dixon is like, I was reluctant to ask you on, Tony, because I know you just want to spend time with your family. Tony was like, yeah, no, everyone always says, oh, Tony, leave him alone. He just wants to be left alone with his wife and kids. But I didn't do anything, mate, for 12 months. Did you? Fuck. For 12 months.
Yeah, he was gone.
Yeah, catchphrase was on the next week.
Good old Tony still going strong. Okay, episode 399 of Bellew of the Week then. Let's get stuck into it before we finish up for the evening.
His interview wasn't worth
you and this boxing asylum, whatever you're called, right? You see, you must be the most bored man on planet Earth, because what you do is you sit and talk about what the fuck I do. Remember this, right? What you talk about, I do. I do it. You talk about it, I do it. So that gives me the right to say whatever I want about what I do. It doesn't give you the right because you don't do it. Now, if you show me a video of you doing it and doing it at the level I do it at, then maybe you can have a say. But remember this, I fight, you watch. It's that simple. That's all it's about. I fight, you watch. No one gives a shit about what you say or what you do, but they give a shit about me because I fight. I don't watch. Simple as that. Your podcast isn't worth a carrot. I don't give a shit what you say, what you do. If you've got something to say to me, I'm not hard to find. I'm usually on the front row at boxing events. Come and say hello, or come and say to me what you'd say to me on your daft podcast. But remember this, I get more views with a fart than what you get with a 2-hour podcast. On that note,
oh my God.
Like a fine wine, Bob.
I tell you what, he was brilliant on catchphrase, but who am I to say who was good on catchphrase? Because I myself, of course, have never been on catchphrase. So unless I'm seen in a video doing catchphrase to the level of Tony Bellew, then I shouldn't comment on it.
When you've stood next to Roy Walker, Rob, then you can have a say.
Say what you see, Tony.
Oh, what a man. Well, let's get stuck in then, shall we? Ozzy, first one this week. You're going to enjoy this. It's from the man himself.
Yeah, we've seen Callum Smith push to the brink when he's underestimated fighters, and make no mistake, yes, he underestimated John Ryder. Did he beat him? Absolutely, he beat John Ryder. I'm sick of people saying, just because someone does better than you thought he done, it does not mean he won. I've seen it time and time again. Carlos Baldomir against Floyd Mayweather. He does far better than everyone anticipated. It doesn't mean he beat him. Jose Luis Castillo done far better than anyone imagined against Floyd Mayweather. Did he beat him? No, he didn't beat him.
Maidana, people say the first one.
Maidana, insane. He didn't win. He just done better than you expected. Don't let that sway your actual judging on a bout.
You're ugly. That's us told.
This coming from a guy who had Derek Chisora beating Alexander Usyk 2 weeks ago because Chisora did better than expected.
Carlos Baldomir. Where's he going with Baldomir? Did he confuse
I think he meant Maidana, Rob. Yeah,
I
think he meant
fucking
Maidana.
hell, Carlos Baldomir got the ears boxed off for 12 rounds. Fuck me.
Baldomir's not doing too well now anyway.
Certainly not. He's not up there in the P for P list anymore.
The P for P list.
Shouldn't joke about that, man. Fuck me, Baldomir. Fuck. Anyway, I'll move on, Steve. Fuck's sake.
I think we probably should look up or don't look up Carlos Baldomir. Yes. First nomination here for Bazooka Boxing. Devin Haney said, "Don't believe the internet. They will flip a narrative and trick the people. Pay attention. Believe what you see." Bazooka Boxing gets stuck in and said they've got Devin Haney #1 pound for pound, followed by Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, and Jamal Charlo. Doing well there, lads. Keep it up. Michael Benson, Dillian White talking about Alexander Povetkin. I personally don't think he's got COVID. I just think he needed more time to get ready because he took a lot of damage in the first fight. He took a lot of time off. Though I got stopped, I went straight back into training, says Dillian White. Greg Cross nominating him for that little Bellew League entry there. ESPN ringside, apparently Kaiser Cobra nominating Terence Crawford. I think Crawford said, send him back to New Zealand. Laugh my ass off, bro. He's from Sheffield. They are so far apart and different. He's not from New Zealand, Dave. Bit of geographical problems going on there for Terence.
I wouldn't expect any less from Terence. I'm proud of him.
I wish someone would go say that to fucking Terence Crawford, by the way. Go and correct him. See what he gets. I love that he thought he was from New Zealand. That's fucking brilliant.
Good old Terence. DAZN announcing Bridgerweight to discuss. Cale Gardy says, I think it's good. There is enough of a weight difference between cruiser and heavy. Still want to see the bronze bomber get the heavyweight belt, then go down. He might be going down like in the last fight. Lewis Calvert nominating him for that one. Marcus Bellinger nominating David Haye. Haye said Dillian White. Saying David Haye conned his way through his boxing career. Marcus Bellinger says, does this man have no concept of irony? Terry Woodfine has nominated Keith Idek. Shout out to Terry as well. He also brought it to my attention, that Tony Bellew clip at the beginning of the Bellew of the week. So shout out to Terry for that one. Ricky Gravel, Trump being stung by Boxing Kingdom. Boxing Kingdom put up a picture saying Mayweather Sr. giving a 12-year-old Teofimo Lopez some tips at the 2006 Amateur Boxing Championships in Cardiff, Wales. Anthony Crowder put a smiley face. Steve Bunce got completely drawn in by this one. He says, Cardiff, World Amateur Champs 2006. Who checks their facts? Trump.
He's like his dad with a Facebook page, isn't he? Like,
oh dear. It's Bunce's best moment since this, maybe.
Ukraine, you know.
You think you're not bothered? You're going to take it?
But I had the two brothers got a restaurant there. I was going to go eat in their restaurant.
What, a couple of African guys or just a couple of black Britons?
No, the Klitschko brothers got a restaurant.
Oh, the Klitschko brothers. I thought you meant two brothers.
No.
Oh, the Klitschko brothers got a restaurant.
Yeah, they got a big restaurant there apparently, so I'm going to go have a steak there.
I'd never seen that until you played it a few weeks ago. Absolutely fucking brilliant, that. Like, Chisora's face, man.
Oh dear, good old.
It's always a bad sign when, you know, like a guy as crazy as Del Boy is coming off as the normal sane one in the room.
Bunce.
What is going through Bunce's mind to say that? Like, what is
He's
going
trying to be cool, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, but then don't just say, "Oh yeah, a couple of black guys, or a black African guy." I'm like, no, you wouldn't say, if it was fucking Tyson Fury or a couple of white men, would you? Or a couple of white gypsies or something like that. It's just weird. I just don't get what goes through his mind to think, this is an appropriate thing to say.
And then he was very specific as well. He was like, "Are they African Britons or Jamaican Britons? What kind of brothers are they?"
Yeah.
To be fair, there's no one better than Bunsey to deal with that, though, is there?
And we are all set very shortly now for our top of the bill here tonight at the BT Sports studio. It is for the famous and historic British middleweight title. And before we get to talk about our main fight here, David, I think it is perhaps appropriate tonight that we just pause to mark Black History Month, most of all. And we discussed it today, and we thought it was actually right that we acknowledge that properly. And there's nobody better placed on our team to do that than Steve Bunt. So over to you for a moment, Steve.
I always say that was not Bunce's fault. That was the handover. That Bunce's not to
Dempsey. Yeah, no, Dempsey stitched him up there, didn't he? Like,
yeah, massively.
We can still enjoy it. Michael Benson reporting again. All these Benson nominations coming in. Kell Brook, you can see it in my eyes that this is going to be your toughest fight. Terence Crawford says, both your eyes are messed up. How am I going to see it in your eyes?
That's just cold.
Didn't a nomination for Brook as well? Because didn't he say, like Snoop Dogg, I'm going to smoke bud? That didn't end too well.
That's a pretty good line, though, by Brooks.
It was highlight of the night for him, to be honest with you.
There's more than hitting someone in the face. Danny Moore on Dave Allen's inside knowledge says this looks even worse, Ozzy, in the light of that sparring clip, doesn't it? For Dave Allen, like David Almond nominating that one there. There's more to than someone hitting you in the face, says Danny Moore. Talking about Dave Allen. Moving on, let's have a look here. Andy has nominated Cynthia Conte. Kell Brook states on his media call he will make Crawford quit on the stool. # Crawford Brook. Texas Tornado. Gabe, remember him? Might come back on one of the days. Said not Bellew of the week. When it happens, it never happened, did it, Dave?
Jesus. Didn't Crawford say something to him at the finish as well? He stand over him and say something to him after knocking.
Yeah, and then he seemed to then indicate to the ref that he'd gone over to see about his wherabouts. But I agree with you, Rob. It seemed like he was going to slag him to me.
Yeah, he was going to say something, and the ref was like, "Be a gentleman" or something, and he was like, "I'm just checking he's okay." But he just stood, looked at him. If that's him inspecting to see are you okay, you wouldn't want to see him mad at you, like.
Crawford pushed in his stool.
Kell Brook doing anal. The boxing bulletin was Mike Tyson, the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time. He then puts up a little bit of evidence. David Almond has nominated him for that. This is a good one, Ozzy. I love Isaac Lowe nomination. I think it might have been James O'Connor who put this one in. Isaac getting ready for one of his fights on his Instagram. Hands getting rape ready.
in the week, fitting tribute to Peter Sutcliffe from Isaac Lowe there. In the week that it was.
I love a bit of Isaac Lowe on social media. The hands getting rape ready for battle. Good old Isaac there. ESPN Inside introducing the new Bridger category between cruiserweight and heavyweight. Prime Type Myson nominated him for that one. There might have been another one in between. Possibly. Best KO of 2020 would be this, Povetkin against Dillian White. Frank said, dunno, that tank knockout over Santa Cruz was fucking brutal. Santa Cruz. And then your man put up that photo, David.
I love the picture of Santa Claus going on a cruise.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. For our audio listeners, that's a bit of a visual one there, but I'll maybe put it up on the Twitter or something. G-Core 211 has nominated Gavin Casey. I've sat at many ringside with Gavin. He's a good guy. He's been nominated here. There are people who tune in for the odd Katie Taylor fight who seem to think that when she batters an opponent, the opponent must be shit. George Foreman dropped Joe Frazier 6 times and blasted him out inside 2 rounds in 1972. Don't know if you've heard of Frazier, but he was good, Rob. Case closed.
Where's he go with that, like? What's the point of that?
I guess he's saying Gutierrez is on Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier's never. Fuck me, man. Gavin, have a day off, man.
Yeah, Gutierrez could have done with crawling into a Philly shell. Andy again nominating Hassan. What about this then, Donny? Brook can still win a title at 154. He smashes most, if all of them, in that division, Don.
Wait, what's that? I'm sorry?
A nomination for Hassan. He's looking on the bright side, Donny, after Kell Brook lost to Crawford. He said Brook can still win a world title at 154. He smashes most, if not all of them, in that division.
Oh, dear God. Oh, no. No.
Hassan putting the 154 division on notice again there.
Yeah.
Yeah, more chance fighting Hassan McQueen here, maybe. Shout out to one time. Declan Graffin. I know you're probably getting bombarded with Bellew of the Week. It's always time for one from you, Declan. Hope you're well. Mimoon signing with about billions. I didn't hear about that, actually. And Tim Bradley as well for saying Brook is the number one British welterweight in the world. William McNamara has nominated Carlton Palmer, a former footballer extraordinaire. Spoke to Kel last night. He is well up for it. The big difference is with the WBO, he does not have to weigh in again, so he can refuel. He'll probably be 149, 150 when he enters the ring. That is huge.
That's like what Oscar weighed in at, like, versus Pacquiao. Like, remember when he only put on 2 pounds?
If he can roll back the clock to the Porter fight, Rob, he could stop him. Could you imagine if he ballooned up by that 1.5, 2 pounds there?
It's only meant 159, 160, did he, Carlton? Was the head of the ball once too many times there. Fuck me. Or maybe he got it mixed up when he said he ran Kell Brook and he was up for it. So I don't know what happened.
Carlton's a big lad. I think he could take him. Also, final one here from me. Andrew Maloney, obviously getting robbed last night. We mentioned this earlier on in the pod. Everyone was getting stuck in. Everyone can have an opinion unless they've done it, as Tony Bellew says. Well, Helen Mirren's on Instagram talking shit. Actress.
What?
Until Helen Mirren's thrown a few punches, she can't say that Maloney was clearly robbed in Vegas tonight. Shame on the Nevada Boxing Organisation.
Wait, what?
Helen Mirren?
That's
Is it
unbelievable.
really Helen Mirren, though, or is it somebody with that screen?
Yeah.
No, it sounds verified and all that. Fucking hell, man.
That's got to be one of the most random ones of the week.
Let
Helen
me
Mirren.
find out what Dame Judi Dench thinks about all this. So I get Brenda Fricker on the phone right now.
I'm just waiting for Meryl Streep to be like, Dave Allen is fucking shit.
Queen Elizabeth's like, you've got to sack
fucking hell.
Victor Loughlin right now.
Victor Loughlin, by the way, for giving that Spanish girl around last night. The fucking cheek of him, man. What is he on him? Victor Loughlin gave the Spanish girl one round. Which round did he give her? Holy shit.
I don't know. The lads in the chat, get Helen Mirren on the pod. Evening, Helen. Yeah, if anybody's friends with her on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, drop her a DM. Let's see if we can get Helen Mirren.
I love the way she fucked off women's boxing straight away and went straight to Maloney.
She's pure raging. Any nominations from you, Donny, this week?
No, I'm not this week, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Jason Chukwu says nomination at the Boxing Soil and Wellings. Are you nominating me, Chukwu, or are you nominating somebody else? I don't know. I got one coming here as well, actually, from Ross Phillips. Shout out to Adam Smith, not Adam Smido Smith, but Bean, indeed, for referring to female boxers as lady warriors. So, Belly of the Week from Ross Phillips there. I think our friend of the pod, Sam, sent me one in as well, live on air. Let's see if I can read that out. Vito Andolini. For fuck's sake, we've lost Dave Allen, Dillian White, and now Tyson Fury fights. November and December was looking so good a month ago. Ozzy, unfortunately, is not here to enjoy that one. Who's somebody nominating me? Come on, boys, get stuck in. I'm happy to take a nomination if need be. Hey, to Dave, who are you going for? Nominations.
This isn't for you, Stephen, but I mean, anyone who knows, I haven't got the tweet in front of me, but Peter Fury, being the gentleman that he is, I think he was watching the Taylor fight. He said something like, well, if we're going by looks, Katie Taylor's got this. Her opponent's face looked like she had a 30-fight career in bare knuckle.
Then he said, this is what it's like if you put a racehorse in against a donkey.
He's a real feminist, that Peter. Yeah, equal treatment. Yeah. And also, I got to nominate my man Bob. I did enjoy this statement post fight, but he said something like, "Let me tell you something. Errol Spence and Danny Garcia fighting in December. I would take Bud Crawford that night and put him against both on the same night. He'd beat both of them."
He always comes off with something, Aaron, doesn't he? He always has to bring in like Sugar Ray Leonard or Hearns or Hagler or somebody as well. He can, I know.
That's just a fucking weed talking, man.
He promoted Hearns.
Yeah, no, I know they're the greats, but he links them to everybody. But there's no need, Bob. There's no need. Smidow's in the chat there. I love Chuckwew, says Smidow. So thanks for that. Ken Doherty's lazy demeanor says, I nominate Belly of the Week, Matt Crawford's trainer, for being fat, loud, and annoying. Also, Ken Doherty's lazy demeanor has nominated Katie Taylor's opponent for looking like Hector Bellerin. yeah, the Crawford crowd were fairly going for it, weren't they, last night? Flip me. We'd like to be caught by a couple of them, just the women alone. Aim says there was an account treating boxing screenshots. I can't find it now. Just going up and down the chat here, guys, see if we can find any more. MB nearly treated. Yep. Any nominations from you, Rob? I'm liking a bit of Helen Mirren myself now.
Helen Mirren is a front runner this week, but Bean and Macklin, man, the two of them are pathetic. During the Rachel Ball fight, I love the way as well Adam Smith is trying to be not sexist, but being inadvertently sexist at the same time. He goes, Rachel Ball, she's in the Cobra Kai dojo or whatever fucking karate club she's in. He goes, she does kickboxing, karate, marathons. She's probably fitter than you, Matt.
Probably.
Matt's like, yeah, I reckon she might be, yeah. And fucking Macklin for saying that Katie Taylor is a global superstar 3 times before the end of the first round. It's tough to beat Helen Mirren this week, though, man. Helen fucking Mirren, man, unbelievable.
Marty Smith, Alan Usyk sparring Bellew of the Week as well. Ken Doherty. Yeah, Ozzy, you've joined us just in time. There's been quite a few solid nominations, and if you saw this one, Ozzy, Helen Mirren getting stuck in on the Maloney. Did you see it?
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding from Helen Mirren. God knows where that came from, but yeah. Excellent that she's had a slide, having a go at the Nevada boxing organisation as well. So yeah, fair play to Helen Mirren.
Absolutely. Do you have any nominations, Ozzy, before we wrap them up?
Yeah, they go by the NBO.
What do we think Tony Bellew would react to Helen Mirren's comments? Because she's never boxed, has she? Or she's never... she's not part of a...
He probably gets away with it, man. He probably gets away with it because he was in Creed 1 and Creed 2. So, he is an actor himself. So he probably has a right to have a pop at Helen there, in fairness to him. Leave him alone.
Exactly. When you've appeared like Tony.
The one for me is Carlton Palmer for saying Brook would be massive because he doesn't have to the rehydration clause, and he was going to put a whopping 2 to 3 times. So yeah.
Oh, the YouTube chat last night on the Katie Taylor fight. You think we have some bangers in our chat? The Katie Taylor versus some Spanish girl fight descended into an IRA versus the LBF chat last night. All you could see in the comments was IRA, LBF. It was fucking ridiculous, man. Unbelievable.
I know you have to turn them chats off, man. They are ridiculous. Right, let's go around the boys then. First of all, Donny Baseball, great to have you back on with us. Who are you going for tonight, sir?
I think Dame Helen Mirren would have to be my choice for this week. I'm looking forward to getting her on the pod very soon. Hopefully, Asylum fans who may be followers of her on Instagram can reach out to the actress and see if she can come on and give us some more thoughts.
Absolutely. Love a bit of Helen Mirren on a Sunday evening. Maloney was clearly robbed in Vegas tonight. Shame on the Nevada boxing organisation. Going in on Bob Bennett there, Ozzy. Is it Helen Mirren for you?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Carlton Palmer a close second.
Johnny Horsecock Nelson in the chat there says nomination for Glenn McCroy for saying Darren Barker is a British boxing great. You're an American boxing great. The official voice of American boxing, no less. Hey to Dave. Who are you going for?
I think that Helen just barely edges out Betty White complaining about Deontay Wilder's excuses.
I liked the Isaac Lowe one as well, Rob. Him Instagramming out saying his
Imagine
hands
that
getting
wasn't a
break
typo,
ready.
man. Imagine how scary that'd be if it wasn't a typo. He'd be like, I don't fight this fella. Shit, man, it's only a game. No, Helen Mirren, man. Helen Mirren is fucking absolutely brilliant. But it says more about me when I've been on the pod for over 150 episodes, and she knows more about the Maloney fight than I do. I didn't even fucking see it.
There's levels to this, Rob. She's watched it and you haven't.
She's done it. I haven't.
Yeah, shout out to Helen Mirren for winning Belly of the Week for episode 399. Didn't see that one coming, but she did well.
Someone tweeted out to her.
That's what we're saying, Donnie. We're going to try and get her on, man, hopefully.
Yeah, you got to tweet it out to her and let her know she won.
Absolutely. Well done, Helen. Thanks, everybody. I think that's it. If anybody has anything they want to throw on, throw in, or throw out, even, hey to Dave, do it so now. Come on, Dave. You're getting rape ready over there.
Amir Khan lasted longer than Kell Brook with Terrence Crawford.
Khan better than Brook. Gabe.
That'll be the way they'd sell that fight as well. Who lasts longer against the great Terrence Crawford?
Arguing. Do you remember that? Weren't two fighters arguing before over who got knocked out better by their common opponents? Who was that?
That was recent, wasn't it?
Oh wait, yeah. What was that fight? I remember that.
I can't remember. He knocked you out heavier, or I got knocked out. You got knocked out like earlier.
Wait, was it Bellew and Cleverly with Cope?
I can't remember.
No.
Can't remember.
You have Brooks saying, well, you got knocked down in the first round and then you quit. And Khan saying, well, I lasted 6 rounds, mate.
Yeah, Bellew and Cleverly, spot on, Donnie. According to the chat, it was Bellew and Cleverly.
It was Bellew and Cleverly. I remember it. I'm sure it was on Ringside or something like that, and they were arguing who got banged out better.
Kovalev or Stevenson and the respective opponents.
Yes, correct.
That's right.
Yeah. I think Tony was saying, no one's done that to me before, and Cleverly was saying, no, Kovalev hits harder, and they were basically just saying who got banged out quicker and better to justify who was going to win a fight between them.
And that was better than a fucking fight, by the way.
Exactly.
Fucking
They never came close to that, did they? There's levels to this getting knocked out. Congratulations.
Leave him alone.
Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Leave Dave Allen alone. Leave Tony Bellew alone. Don't leave us alone. Join us back next week for episode 400. It's been an absolute pleasure tonight. Some great names. Shame Andy couldn't have been with us. He's sorting things out. Shout out to him. Rapping Rob Kelly was here. Adam Smith was here earlier as well. Hey to Dave Lowe. Back Donny Baseball. Ozzy as well. I've forgotten all about Conor Benn. Ozzy, do you want to say anything about that, or should we just wrap up for the evening? I forgot he was even fighting next week.
Oh, of course, yeah. I forgot about that. Big step up for him, isn't it? Against this Sebastian Formella. Formella went the distance with Sean Porter. So it'd be a bit of a statement if Ben can get Formella out of there. It's certainly not an easy fight. I just don't think Formella's got the pop in his punches to cause any real issues for Ben. So I'm not 100%. I'm going to watch a bit of Formella this week to see if there's any value in backing him, basically. Alan Babbage against Tom Little on the undercard, a fight I couldn't care about. I mean, Little, what a pointless fight. Richard Larty is back, by the way.
Got out of his contract with Frank Warren, clearly.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's fighting Fabio Wardley. I always say if Larty who boxed Dubois turns up and gives it a go, you never know. He's always got a puncher's chance. But what's it called? But the one who fought Nathan Gorman, Wardley will bash him up. And it's a good English title fight. Liam Davis, Sean Cairns. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Formella is quite. I'm sure it's 4-6, 6-4. So if Formella's winning, I don't think he'll stop Ben. I think he'll have to outbox him. And likewise, do you see Ben going 12 rounds and beating this guy on points? Very interesting fight, I think. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a decent fight for Ben. I think Formella showed against Porter that he's got a decent beard. He's quick enough. He's got a good jab, but he just can't punch at all, unfortunately. Dave, did you want to throw something in there?
Yes, as a well-known Conor Benn expert, I'm going to pick this fight. I'm going to say it goes the full 12. I think it goes the full 12. I think Ben gets it, and I think it's going to be controversial.
There you go. Hater Dave has spoken. We'll find out next week. Not going to dwell too much on things next week. We will talk a little bit of Spence Garcia. Most of the show will be given over to celebrating a few clips, a few moments from the week, from the 400 episodes before. Like I said, if you do want to jump on, give us your thoughts or send them to me during the week on Twitter. We'll hopefully have a few names from the past appearing as well. We will be giving an open invitation to everybody who has been on the panel in the past to join us if they so wish. And if they don't, shame on them. Rapping Rob Kelly was on tonight. Thank you, sir. Hater Dave Lowback, Ozzy Smith, Donny Baseball, Adam Smitho-Smith. I've been Steve Wellings. Catch you all again for episode 400. Same time, same place next week. Give us a like. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes or 50-50 with dislikes tonight. Go and do the business for us, boys. We'll catch you again. Bye.